You're listening to The Women in the Arena. I'm your host, Paige Rene, former collegiate athlete turned leadership entrepreneur for women just like you. Each week, I'm bringing you a new person or message to help you expand and elevate into the woman you know you're meant to be. Now, let's step into the arena. Hello, Women in the Arena. I'm really excited to be back in a solo podcast episode with you. We've had some incredible interviews, and originally I wanted to do an interview, a solo pod, an interview, a solo pod, but these interviews have been amazing. So if you haven't caught one yet, you can go back and binge an interview with head softball coach Courtney Deifel, an interview with former ESPN reporter Danielle Musselman, and our latest one with Olympic gold medalist Jordan Weber and current head gymnastics coach. And they really, truly fire me up. And some of the best advice I've gotten in this business is to produce and create offers and projects that you truly want. And this is something that I really enjoy doing. But I'll be honest, listening to yourself on a podcast is a little bit cringy, so I'll have to go back and listen to make sure that I'm not saying like too much, which was my takeaway from the last one. Limiting that today, I'll let you guys all hold me accountable. But we are really going to be talking about saying negative things out loud. And one of my clients shared this YouTube video with me last week. And you guys, I have not stopped thinking about it since. It's from Impact Theory, and the host is interviewing Trevor Moawad, who has since passed away from cancer. And he used to be a performance coach for NFL teams, collegiate football teams, and worked closely with some really prominent athletes like quarterback Russell Wilson. He also wrote the book, It Takes What It Takes. And the interview was incredible. I've listened to it twice. I made Peyton listen to it on our way to Dallas this weekend. And I think the number one thing that it truly gave me the tools to conceptualize is this idea that there isn't just positive and negative. There's a neutral ground. And so I'm going to talk to you guys about that today. The other thing he shared is that negativity weaponizes you against you. So it's not even about what you say and the impact it has on somebody else. While that's important, it really is what negativity does when you say it out loud. So I'm going to share a little bit about that. When he was working with college football programs, he said that the level of impact he or even a head coach has is really limited because your team changes every year, your personnel can change every year. And so he had to ask himself, how can we make the biggest impact through 20 hours a week for roughly a 13-week season? And it's not going to be telling somebody, hey, you need to be positive. And it's really hard to do that because I know there's been times in my college career when I was playing softball where if somebody told me to be positive after I've just struck out 3 times in a row, I was ready to throw the bat at them. So it's not always helpful, but there's alternatives. And I want to share these tools with you. Reading from the study that Trevor Moawad was referencing, it was a study by Christine Porath of Georgetown. And she suggested that thoughts spoken aloud hold far more impact than those left unsaid. So there's thoughts going around in our mind all of the time, right? But she found that thoughts spoken out loud hold more impact than those left unsaid. She discovered that while positive thoughts spoken out loud carry 10 times more power than those left as just thoughts in our head, she said she was even more surprised to find that negativity acts as a multiplier in this scenario, and a multiplier by 4 to 7. So what that means is when we choose to speak negative thoughts out loud, we're increasing the probability of an outcome different than what we actually want by nearly 40 to 70%. Wild. So you can't really control what's going on in your brain all of the time. The thoughts are sometimes really outlandish, but you can control what comes out of your mouth. And I think that's the important thing that I want to share with you here. There was a really cool example, a sports example, of course, that Trevor shared through this interview. Those of you that are interested in MLB may have heard of this before. But it's so funny because before I share this example, I was just in Boston going through the bridge that they call the Buckner Bridge because of a ground ball that went through his legs in the 1986 World Series. And at the time when one of my friends shared that with me as we're going under the bridge, I thought, that's interesting, and kind of logged it away, not realizing a week later I was going to get the full story. I'm going to share that with you guys. In 1986, Bill Buckner was playing first base for the Red Sox, and it was the 10th inning of Game 6 of the World Series. They were playing against the Mets. I believe there was 2 outs, and there was a ground ball hit where it rolled in between his legs. The Mets scored, and they won the World Series. There was this big uproar, of course, because you're in Game 6, it's the 10th inning, and it's just a really electric moment. And so, of course, Buckner felt like doo-doo because nobody wants that to happen. That's the worst feeling in the world. What Trevor shared was that 12 days prior to that World Series, Bill Buckner was being interviewed, and he said this, in quotes, "The dream is that you're going to have a great series and win. The nightmare is that you're going to let the winning run score on a ground ball through your legs. Those things happen. I think a lot of it is just fate." I literally have chills sharing that with you, just as I had chills reading about it and listening to it for the first time, because while he said that out loud 12 days before it happened, am I saying, and is anybody saying that by saying it out loud meant that it was going to happen? No, absolutely not. But your words have power more than I think we know at times. So the words that you say out loud are almost logged away in your subconscious. They're strengthened when you say them out loud. They're thoughts in your head, but when you say them out loud, they're strengthened and logged away. And it was just such a good reminder that, okay, it may be hard to find positivity through certain moments, but if we can limit the negative things that we're saying out loud, that can really help us. And so going back to the example of college football earlier, and I don't even know if I fully explained why I was sharing that, is that if you have a small portion of time with people, the biggest impact you can make is not introducing all of this new information and creating all of this positivity. It's just eliminating the negative things that are said out loud. So that's really what I was sharing when I was talking about 20 hours a week with 13-week season. It's just a limited time frame to do everything to train for your sport and then eliminate some of those things that are being said. But it's so important to know that you can eliminate the negative things. I remember when I was playing and I was a freshman, and at the time at North Carolina, we were traveling and we would get what I thought was free food and free snacks on the road. And I was like, wow, this is awesome. We get all these restaurants and this is delicious and this is free. And I'm so excited. And we would get to pass around the menu on the bus and pick what we wanted. And I remember some of the older classmen really complaining like, oh, we have to eat sandwiches again. That sucks. I hate eating this. And I was really upset at the time because I was like, oh man, we get all this free stuff. And then I found myself in either my junior or senior season saying some of those things. And I remember catching myself being like, I should really be grateful the way that I was my freshman year. And I share that because it is contagious. And if we now have research to back that up, we can reference Christine Porath and her studies that, yeah, the negative things we say out loud are 40 to 70% more likely to come to fruition. And it's really important. So what are those areas in your life where you are saying those things? I was in the gym this morning at CrossFit and we were doing heavy lifts, and some of the girls I was lifting with before a lift would say, oh, I'm probably not going to get this. And I couldn't help but think about that article. I couldn't help but think, this isn't helping you. But I think sometimes when we say those things out loud, those negative things that aren't going to help us, I think sometimes that's a way to keep us safe. Like sometimes that's a way to say, you know what, if this doesn't work out, at least I said it wasn't going to work out, right? And maybe there's a level to that where it's not as vulnerable or it's not as embarrassing, but it's also not as helpful. So if you're listening to this, I want you to know that you always have the ability to control what you say. And it might not be easy to jump from a really tough situation to all of a sudden being grateful. I was talking to a client yesterday who experienced a tragedy and they lost their home. And so she said to me in the call, she said, Paige, you're going to really have to help me find gratitude through this. And I said, I don't know that now is the time to find gratitude through that. I think that will come. But another analogy that Trevor Moawad introduced was a car analogy. And in a car, you're going in reverse. When you're in reverse, you don't just go from reverse to forward. You have to get to a spot where you stop to transition into drive or you get to neutral. And I think neutral is that truth, like it's realistic. And so when I was talking to my client, I was like, the truth you're in right now is that this is a really catastrophic event and it's a really tough event. So let's just be honest about that. And let's be honest about what's going on right now. So neutral, give yourself space to be in neutral if you're trying to navigate a really tough situation. Maybe you can't jump to drive. And by drive, I mean positive right away, but allow yourself to get there. You can eliminate going in reverse. And I think that's really helpful for us all to understand. Okay, don't panic, but we have just over 3 months left of 2023. I was reading the letter I wrote to myself in December of 2022 the other day and thought, oh boy, I need to get going. There are still some goals that are left on the table to grab. If you're with me, you definitely don't have to do this alone. Join me for your Elevation Era. This is a 6-week activation for women leaders of all ages. You are going to turn your ideas into action. Finally, you're going to go from maybe one day to holy crap, I did it. Each week for 6 weeks, you get an exclusive training, a private community of women leaders, and a coaching call with me. But listen, we are not just talking here. We're putting these ideas into motion, so you'll also get specific action items to work through each week. And we start October 2nd. Grab your spot through the link in the show notes right now. This is a foundation rate and will not be offered again. I'll see you inside. There's been times in my life where I've definitely gotten into that negative headspace and I'm complaining or I'm critiquing a lot. So I'm a 7 on the enneagram and you have a growth number. So if I'm a 7, it's an enthusiast. And when I'm in times of growth, I'm more of a 5. I'm patient. I'm listening. I'm thinking. In times of stress, I'm more of a 1 and I'm hypercritical. And not all 1s are like this. If you're listening and you're a 1, we're just talking about the unhealthy ones. And that's what I default to when I'm in stress. And you're critical and you're nitpicky. And I definitely find myself in those scenarios. And so one of the things that I am setting an intention of doing is not saying some of those things out loud. And usually that comes from like just inside. If I'm like, oh, our house is messy, or I'm frustrated at how Peyton and I are cooking together. It's just little things like that, which don't seemingly mean a lot. But if you've been in my world, you know that I love to say little wins lead to big wins. And maybe you've heard of this saying, death by 1,000 paper cuts. 1,000 paper cuts is 1,000 little negative remarks. It really, truly becomes toxic. And so where are those areas you can catch yourself wanting to say something out loud that just isn't helpful for you or anyone else? And can you eliminate that? Because that in itself is growth, and growth and progress equal happiness. We are human beings that ultimately desire growth and desire happiness. And this is one of those ways to do that. So if you're listening to this and you want to know your one big takeaway, actually, I'll give you 2. Number 1, it's okay to be in a neutral space. It's okay to just look at things as truth and decide where you want to move from there. That's number 1. And number 2 is stop saying stupid things out loud. It doesn't do anybody any good. My mind goes back to an ex-boyfriend who was super, super sarcastic, and he would say really sarcastic things all the time. And I felt like he would try to mask those with, oh, it's just a joke, or can't you take a joke, or it's really supposed to be funny. And I literally, this is so nerdy, I like Googled the definition of sarcasm, and it is hypercritical, and it's kind of a way to mask negative things that you're saying. And so it's just really important to know your heart behind your words because they hold so much power. So thanks for being here. Go get in the arena and let's eliminate the negative talk while we're in there. Have an awesome day, you guys. I hope today's episode inspired you on your journey in the arena. Make sure to check out the show notes in the description for a rundown of today's show with all the important links. If you enjoyed this, please share with a friend. I know how much it means to me when my friends share podcasts. Leave us a review and let us know what landed with you over on Instagram at Paige_Rene15. As always, your best bet is on yourself.